In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, in ADBISTAN's program RUBARU with Raza Siddiqi, today we are introducing you to another literary personality. I am referring to a fiction writer, journalist, columnist, blogger, and much more. Resides in Karachi and is also the editor of a new literary publication. He has had more than 700 literary interviews published in newspapers so far. His name is a prominent one in the field of literature. So now let us turn our attention to IQBAL KHURSHEED. His remarkable novel has become so incredibly popular that whenever major literary figures discuss the future of the novel or talk about novels in general, one name that is always prominently mentioned is Iqbal Khurshid's novel Takon Ki Chauthi Jihad. I interviewed Musharraf Alam Zoki Sahib. Among the novels and literary personalities he mentioned Iqbal Khurshid. Your name was at the top of the list. When I interviewed the esteemed Hamid Shahid Sahib, he too prominently mentioned the name of Iqbal Khurshid in the significant context of the future trajectory of the novel. So before we inadvertently become an obstacle on the way, let us now turn our attention to Iqbal Khurshid. Assalamu alaikum Iqbal Khurshid Bhai.
Greetings, Mr. Raza. How are you doing? I'm very glad that we were able to connect like this. And your series, Rubaru, is truly commendable. In times like these, with lockdowns, isolation, and as we grapple with the pandemic, you are creating a way forward. It feels like a window to fresh air. I'm very happy about your interviews, and I'm grateful that you gave me the opportunity to participate in your program.
IQBAL Khurshid BHI, I will certainly come to you regarding literature. But before that, could you please introduce yourself a little for the viewers of Adbistan? Could you tell us where you are from? Where did you receive your education? And what is your profession? And you, although I have mentioned that you are a columnist and briefly talked about your work with newspapers, I would like to hear it from you in your own words.
Certainly, sir. My real name is Muhammad Iqbal Sheikh. Iqbal Khurshid is my pen name. My ancestors were from Aligarh. After migrating, they settled in the city of Sukkur in Sindh. There is an area called Panwa, which is well known because of the military cantonment there. They lived there, and as our uncles and my father continued their studies, some moved towards Hyderabad, others towards Karachi. Our elders chose the teaching profession. However, my father's field was different. It was his profession that took him to Saudi Arabia. So, in a way, we spent our childhood in Saudi Arabia, but we always remained connected to Pakistan. He loved reading books, so whenever he visited Pakistan, he would take children's magazines and detective literature back with him. There was also a community there. Coincidentally, we lived in an area with a majority of Pakistanis, so Urdu was the main language of communication. The environment was almost the same as in Pakistan. I grew up there and studied up to 8th grade, then returned to Pakistan, completed my matriculation, intermediate, and graduation here. I did my master's in two stages at the University of Karachi, one in mass communication and the other in international relations. And I also did a B.Ed. That was my educational journey. After that, my professional journey began. There was the agony of unemployment. It was a period of 2 years, a difficult time. And it was during this period that I started writing. There was a newspaper called Jurat, and I used to write columns for it. So, yes, I was unemployed, but there was a sense of satisfaction that I was writing and getting published somewhere. At that time, Jurat was a popular newspaper. And I used to feel very pleased when some people from my area would recognize me and say, "Are you the one whose columns we read?" Then an incident happened. I won't go into the details, but I joined Express, which I consider my good fortune, because there I met Mr. Afaf Rahman, a genuine editor, the last of his kind in the field of editorship, who trained us. I worked with him for 10 years, where I oversaw the interview section and conducted nearly 700 interviews, most of which were literary. It was there that I learned so much that would later benefit me in life, such as the importance of reading. Mr. Afaf passed away not long ago. He was a living legend who inspired us towards literature. He gave us books inside the office. He would hand out novels like Gandhi, Voltaire's works, or Justine Gardner's Sophie's World, or Roots. Mr. AFAF would give us these and we would read them. He used to tell us that if we wanted to find the right word, we needed to learn how to consult a dictionary and that we should seek advice in order to reach the true origin of a word. This is an effort we still intend and wish to continue today. And along with that, he also gave us the freedom that if you write fiction, that's a very good thing. If you are sitting in the office reading books, I have no objection to that. Those were 10 years. Those years gave me the platform where I could write and read. And in this way, my journey went from Bhagne to Express, from Express to Dunya, and from Dunya to ARE. Even now, I am still associated with the media group. At a private university, I am teaching a course on history, film, television, and animation and script writing. I also continue to write scripts. I keep writing for Express and Sama Television. So these are some of my activities.
You have truly revealed quite a significant amount about yourself. Now, one particular thing I specifically wanted to inquire about regarding the fourth dimension of the triangle is that you deliberately didn't create any particularly elaborate or complex characters within it, and yet, despite this, you remarkably elevated the entire novel to an exceptionally high standard. Tell me, as a dedicated creator, do you personally give more significant importance to the technical aspects or to the compelling content itself?
Good content is extremely important, but what presents it is technique and style. Fasi Salim used to say that literature is made not by subjects but by style. Now, this can certainly be debated, but to put it briefly, I would say that 9/11 is a very significant subject.
Let me come back to this important point. When you are writing a compelling story, what truly matters more to you, the narrative itself or the distinctive style?
So, as I was saying, 9/11 is a major event, a very significant subject, but only that literature written on this subject will endure and be accessible, which contains experience, which captures you on an emotional level. And then there's the matter of technique, how you impact the reader. So it's not just the text or the subject that's enough. Rather, both style and the technique with which you narrate the story means. Both style and technique are essential. So I give both of these things just as much importance as is appropriate. Anyway, the subject comes first, but generally in our context, these two things are given somewhat less attention, especially punctuation, which is not commonly practiced among us. This is the very thing I read somewhere that Jane Austen was considered a master stylist in fiction. But later research revealed that the sub-editor at the publishing house where her novels were released was actually the true stylist, as he knew how to use punctuation effectively. Through his work, Jane Austen's creations gained a certain flavor, a sharpness, a brilliance. So style is extremely important, and I consider style, technique, and form to be highly significant as well. But again, if mother is a very common subject and 9/11 is a very specific topic, both types of subjects have been written about. But what is that literature which truly finds a place in your heart? Certainly, it is only when the writer brings something of their own essence to a common or specific topic that the work is able to reach your heart.
All right. Akbal Khurshid Bhai, please tell us, is it possible for literature to shape society and influence it?
Raza Bhai, you've asked a very good question, but I would just like to add one last thing to the previous question. Actually, whether it's the fourth dimension of a triangle or a whirlwind, my 10 or 11 years of experience in print media involved editing a huge amount of text. We always had a specific framework for it. Example, you had to write an interview in 1,500 words or 2,500 words. So we would write according to that frame. As a result, shortening sentences and editing became a habit for me. Now, I think I've adapted to the point where I believe things should be presented concisely. Your sentence should be complete but concise. And I believe that in our Urdu fiction, not enough attention has been given to editing. Now, as for your question, let me explain. I believe that literature is connected to society. It is born from society, it is rooted in the soil of society, and certainly it has an impact on its readers and also brings about change.
Russian literature created a wave of change, not just in Russia or the Soviet Union, but throughout the world. The influence of progressive literature can also be seen in Urdu literature. But the dilemma now is that when books are printed in quantities of only 500, most of them end up in institutions and there are hardly any readers. So you tell me, what kind of impact can it really have?
You are absolutely and entirely right about that particular point. Now, in your truly remarkable and deeply engaging novel, the intricate and nuanced development of each character is
What I have
undeniably very
observed in
important
your
and
work
plays a
is
crucial
that
role in the narrative.
Karachi is mentioned
However, you
quite
have
frequently in
impressively
your
managed to
writings,
write such
along
a
with its
substantial,
issues and the
comprehensive, and richly
challenges
detailed
faced
novel
there.
with only
The
three
things
primary,
you
central,
draw
and
from
pivotal
your
main characters. So, was
experiences
that
are
truly
very
possible?
significant for
And what was
understanding
your
the
approach to
problems of
achieving such a
Karachi.
feat?
In the same way, many fiction writers have described
Thank
the
you very
story
much
of
for
Delhi, or
appreciating
like
this novel.
Rahman
Actually, I
Abbas,
believe
who
that I have
depicted the
done various kinds
atmosphere
of
of
work
his own
related to
city in his
writing. I've
novel.
conducted
In
interviews,
this
created
context, you
blogs,
have
written columns, and
completed
I
the
also
fourth
write fiction.
dimension of the
But the
triangle
work that
with
is
three
closest to my heart
characters,
is
which is
fiction
truly
writing. I
commendable,
feel
and you
very
have
happy
accomplished
when
this in
a
a
friend
beautiful
praises
manner.
my fiction
So,
or
one thing I
says
wanted to
something
ask
encouraging
is it
about it.
necessary for
Character
literature to
development
be
is
a
extremely
mirror of
important. My
society?
focus was on the technique of the novel. You've read it too, that in it, each character gets to tell their story one by one. In this way, every character was given a complete opportunity for expression. There were three main characters, but they kept appearing before you repeatedly in a particular pattern. They would repeatedly assert their identity. I am a woman, I am a man, I am a warrior. Then again, I am a woman, I am a man, I am a warrior. Perhaps this is how they managed to reach the reader's mind and emerged as strong characters. The setting of the novel is quite expansive. We show the northern areas which are influenced by just white tea. And Karachi, where there are also linguistic issues, it rains, there's mud everywhere, and there are other things as well. But despite all this, the story is confined to a single room within a compound. So, in this way, there were three characters. The canvas was broad, but I utilized the setting to show where and when each event was taking place. The conflict between Bate and Joe, all the conflict you see, there's man versus man, man versus society, man versus self, all of that, whether it's the woman facing it in the flat or the man facing it in the compound, the setting served my purpose.
When quite frequently in your
It's easy
writings,
to portray someone
along with its
exactly as they
issues
are,
and the challenges
but the
faced
real
there,
challenge is to
the
infuse it
things you
with feeling.
draw
That's something
from your
entirely different.
experiences are very significant for understanding the problems of Karachi. In the same way, many fiction writers have described the story of Delhi, or like Rahman Abbas, who depicted the atmosphere of his own city in his novel. In this context, you have completed the fourth dimension of the triangle
Yes,
with three
what you just
characters,
said
which
reminded me
is
of
truly
Majid Amjad in
commendable,
one
and
of
you
his
have accomplished
interviews.
this in a beautiful manner.
Thank you
Majid
very
Amjad
much.
said that he never feels
So, one
satisfied.
thing I wanted
He
to ask
finishes something and puts it
is it
aside,
necessary
then
for
turns his
literature
attention
to be a
elsewhere.
mirror of society?
Later, when he
Look, at
thinks of
one
that
time when
old piece of
cinema first
writing,
emerged,
he
we
revises it,
saw that
edits it,
cinema
and then
depicted
completes it.
reality.
So I
It
think you're talking
presented
about
what
the
was
same thing
outside
that
our
a
eyes, what
novel
we
or a
could
short
see.
story or
But
any
when
piece
the
of writing
concept of
should be
German
continuously
Expressionism came
revised and edited
about
until
after the
you
First World
yourself
War,
are truly
when the world
satisfied
had
with it.
changed and our concerns, our list of sources of entertainment had shifted, German Expressionism arrived, where the feeling of art became more important than reality itself. In this context, there was a film called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, where for the first time it was shown how we can present an entire film, an entire story, not one that exists in the real world, but one that exists within the character, within the character's own mind. Certainly, literature is a reflection of society because literature is born from this very soil. Or, as Muhammad Hanif said something I find particularly noteworthy, that the literature we write is influenced by the books we have read. So if I have read Marx and Orhan Pamuk, then in some way I'm definitely influenced by the literature they have written. And perhaps I may not even find my own voice. Or even if I do find my own voice, I might still want to pay tribute to my favorite writers. So literature is born from society, but it does not simply paint a picture of society. It should not just be photography. It should be like an X-ray. Taking a photograph is easy. You can photograph a person as they are, but
So, Iqbal Khurshid Bhai,
it
please
only
tell
becomes
us,
an
how
X-ray
do
when it
you
has emotion, and
differentiate
that's when
between
I'll
a
say
short story
this is
and
art.
a novel?
Just like a
For
film is art,
example,
we must
Edgar
present it
Allan Poe
expression.
said
It's
that a
not just
short
about
story
writing
is
it. Even
something
after
that
you've
can be
written it,
read
you
in
should
an
erase it.
hour. That is,
As
there
Wangzul Waza
shouldn't
said,
be
a
any
novel is
major
writing and
digressions in
erasing
it, or they
repeatedly.
usually
He
aren't.
was
But
talking about
since this is
editing,
the
which
opinion of a
we
senior
often neglect.
figure, that's why I wanted to ask, how do you define the difference between a short story and a novel?
Yes, yes. Now, look, the second edition of the book, and we were fortunate that just 2 months later, thanks to the attention it received and the love from friends, we held its launch event 45 days later at the Karachi Press Club. There we announced that we would be bringing out the second edition. We had already started working on the second edition, and it was during these very days of Ramadan that I went to the press. When the second edition was published, up until then I had done all the work on it, but even then, the process of editing it again and again continued. Sometimes I would read it myself, and sometimes a friend, Rafiullah Mian, who's very talented, I must mention his name,
So
among the
some
writers would
insightful
read it.
people have
Our friend,
also
senior
thoughtfully
journalist
said
and
that
translator,
a
Mr.
short
Rana
story is
Muhammad Asif,
truly like a
both of these
small,
gentlemen
delicate
read the
wing
script
of
more
life,
than once.
while
I
the
read it,
novella is
and
essentially the
in this way,
comprehensive
it was
story of a single
a kind
unique
of editing
person,
process that
and
we
the
put it
novel
through.
is the
Even
profound
now,
cultural
believe me,
form
the
of
first
that
novel I
very
wrote,
same
titled
individual.
Namaka Admi,
Do you
I
completely
last
agree with
edited it
this
about
intriguing
6 years ago and then
quotation?
set it aside. But there are two other novels. Whenever I get the time, I will edit them. Well, this is quite a lengthy discussion, and there isn't anything tangible in it, nothing concrete that we can actually grasp. These are concepts, and they're not as solid as, say, the bookshelf behind me. So, anyway, but I think we can at least pay attention to the number of words. For example, if you look at English literature, they say that if
Let's
a
turn to
story
your
is wrapped up
editorial
in five or
abilities.
six
You are
thousand words,
also the
we
editor
can
of a
call it a short
magazine.
story.
Some
If it
time
spans
ago,
around
you
8 to
published a
15 or
special issue
16,000
on
words,
Mushtaq
then we
Yufi,
would call
which
it a
was
novel.
quite popular
That
among the
very term
public.
novella
So, do you have
is
any
perhaps
plans to
what we have
publish
referred to as
more
a
such
novel here.
special issues in the
So, in
future?
both of my books, I wanted to present them as novels. But friends said that this term might not be popular or familiar here, so we ended up calling them novels. However, Musharraf Alam Zauxi said, no, these are novels. And Nasir Abbas Nayar also said that novel is the correct term. So, in my opinion, we can at least pay attention to the word count. If a short story is 5 to 6,000 words, if you are familiar with Ghazanfar Sahib's works, you have said that you can read an entire novel in one sitting.
So
Look, I can agree with this kind of statement to some extent that a short
All
story,
right.
after
As a
all,
fiction
depicts a
writer or
particular
novelist,
moment,
what
a
I would like to
specific
ask
event, or
you
a
is,
single aspect.
are you
And in a
satisfied with your
novel,
journey
there is
as a
more,
fiction
you
writer,
could say,
and are you also
complexity that you
satisfied
can
with the
include.
response
For
from your
example, if you look at
contemporaries?
Zakira Noel or Udas Fasil, there were many conflicts in multiple settings. If you look at Akka Daria, its canvas was very vast. So it is absolutely correct that in a short story, you depict a specific thing. The short story has also been the focus of my attention. In fact, the short story, the tale began from there. In the beginning, I wrote only short stories, and I even have a collection of short stories almost ready, but for now, I do not intend to publish it. The gradual journey from short stories to novels, if someone undertakes it this way, it is good because one should practice. A novel demands a great deal of attention. Yes, as I was saying before, the connection was interrupted. Ijra is another name for Asim Salim, or rather, it is the continuation of Asim Salim's hard work. It is not a continuation of his thought because intellectually he was much more committed and involved with us. And there are many complexities, perhaps intellectually we can be considered different. So, this is a continuation of his hard work, a continuation of his conviction. We published the Yusufi special issue, and the response we received was astonishingly made a profit, which was unexpected. Throughout the entire journey of Hijra, before the 26th issue, we had never made a profit. We published the second edition, and even that sold out. Now, our next project is the Shakil Abid Zada special issue. Due to the coronavirus crisis, we were limited by the lockdown. Otherwise, it would have already gone to press or perhaps even been published by now. Our aim now is to send it to press during Ramadan and present it afterwards.
All right, as a fiction writer or novelist, what I would like to ask you is, are you satisfied with your journey as a fiction writer? And are you
Actually, I believe that fiction is a vast field. Now, if you look at it when it comes to interviews, I think that perhaps
Okay.
among the five major interviewers in
Mustansir
Urdu
Hussain
newspapers in
Tarar,
Pakistan, I could be
the
included.
esteemed
If we
Musharraf
talk about
Alam
books,
Zoki, a
but the issue
prominent
with
writer,
fiction is
expresses
something
his
else
strong
entirely.
opinion that
Here,
writers from
the
both India
competition
and
is of a
Pakistan
completely
should
different nature.
absolutely
In fact,
strive to
even the
break
word
completely
competition isn't
free
quite appropriate
from the
for it. Now,
pervasive
take
Western
Asad Muhammad
dominance
Khan,
and
for example.
influence
Consider
that
him
has
not
long
just
been
the most
present.
important
What do you
figure
think about
of
that?
this
The
era, but one of the
influence of
most
this is
significant
quite
in
strong
Urdu
on
short
Urdu
story writing.
and
He is still
Hindi
alive,
literature.
and I go to him and pay my respects by kissing his hand. So Asad Muhammad Khan is still with us. Hassan Manzar is still here. Mustansar Hussain Tarar is still present. Mirza Atar Beg is still writing. So when you have Tarar, Hassan Manzar, Asad Muhammad Khan, when Intizar Sahib was alive, we paid our respects to him. Abdullah Hussain was there, and we witnessed the passing of Shaukat Siddiqi Sahib. Among such fiction writers, a fiction writer like myself, in my opinion, belongs to a generation, several generations later. We try to write and present something, but when Asad Muhammad Khan is alive, when Hassan Manzar is here, when Tarar is present, and then in the next generation you have Muhammad Hamid Shahid, Mirza Athar Bhai, and here is Ikram among so many writers. I think we are perhaps the third or fourth generation of fiction writers, and our efforts are humble ones, and we are grateful for whatever appreciation we receive. Since if you listen to me, I am the kind of person who admires personality. I believe that the praise that should be given, it should go to Asad Muhammad Khan or to Hassan Manzar or to Tarar. After that, there should be no words left for praise. But still, all our seniors have shown a lot of love. Read it attentively. Tara Sahib wrote about it. Hassan Manzar wrote. It even reads Shamsur Rahman Paloki, Musharraf Alam Zawchi, Abbas Azli. Bakar Naqvidis are the ones whose names are on the book's flap. After that, Syed Kashif Razi, who is our friend, read it and gave his opinion. Others also shared their views. So I am grateful to everyone and consider myself fortunate. What Mr. Zauki has said, in my opinion, I have a great deal of affection for him. And perhaps I could understand this even better by discussing it with him direct. So I'll remove his name from this statement and give you my own view. Actually, this debate has always existed among us. Is the literature of Pakistan and India or Urdu literature strong enough to be presented on the world stage? There are two kinds of opinions on this. Some people say, no, sir, you don't even exist anywhere, not even on the margins. So just forget about it. Others say, no, after all, there is some substance in what we have written and we can present it somewhere. I think that the lack of translations has been a major tragedy because our literature hasn't been translated into those languages that we consider global languages. It hasn't reached international readers, hasn't come under discussion, and so a certain sense of inferiority has developed within us. Now, it's possible that if Asad Muhammad Khan's stories, Muhammad Hanif once said that his stories meet international standards. Hanif Muhammad, I apologize. Asad Muhammad Khan, Hassan Manzar, Intizar Sahib, Abdullah Hussain, Qurratullain Haider, Shaukat Siddiqui, if their works had reached the world with good translations, they would have been discussed. If there had been good translators, good institutions, and these writers had been translated and then presented alongside the rest of the world's literature, even if we had been rejected and told, sir, you don't exist anywhere, we would have accepted it. But that never happened. So as long as that hasn't happened, we should remain hopeful that it will. and that our literature will be able to establish its own identity somewhere. There is an influence of Western literature, and there are also influences from Eastern literature. As readers, we enjoy both, and as writers, we are influenced by them.